Welcome to Town of Mount Pleasant Planning Board meeting, regular schedule for March 18th, 2024, 7:30 p.m. Number of items to go through. Let me just enumerate our agenda for tonight. First up, we have business items, and that's where we discuss items that we have reviewed in the past. Our consultant has drafted a resolution. The board has reviewed those resolutions, and we make a decision to be accepted or not. Followed by new public hearing and new applications. I am going to switch things up a little bit because item number one, which is the big item I think for tonight for DEP, is going to take a bit of time. Number two is Arnold Place, which is essentially I think that's just it's a small application. It's going to take us a short amount of time. So we're going to put number one behind number two, and number two first, just to allow the time that we need to have for the bigger conversation that we have for tonight. Okay? So first up, we have business items. Number one, 6 Gatwick Court, construction of retaining walls to create usable backyard space. Again, 6 Gatwick Court, construction of retaining walls to create usable backyard space. This is an application we've reviewed quite a bit. Town staff has reviewed the application as well. We have a resolution that we have reviewed. Any comments or questions from board members? I'll entertain a motion.
I move the adoption of the 6 Gatwick Court resolution.
Motion from Eileen.
I'll second it.
Second from JD. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. 871 Franklin, also 871 Commerce. It's a piece of property that goes between Franklin and Commerce. Request for approval of site plan application SP 21-01 in accordance to 218.68 residential and a commercial zoning district. Interior renovations of first floor offices, Commerce Street side, to create 2 one-bedroom apartments. Any questions or comments from board members?
You have 2 resolutions, Mr. Chairman, the neg deck and the site plan.
Thank you. So that's a neg deck and site plan. So can we entertain a motion on the neg deck?
I move adoption of the neg deck for 871 Franklin, 871 Commerce.
Motion from Eileen.
Second.
Second from Jane. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Okay, next up we have the site plan. I'll entertain a motion on the site plan for 871 Franklin.
I'm on a roll, so I move adoption of the site plan. Approval resolution for Franklin and Commerce Street.
Okay, motion from Eileen.
Second.
Second from JD. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Okay, next up, we're moving right along. 115 Milton Street, construction of an in-ground pool with surrounding patios, pool houses with steps, retaining walls, and associated stormwater management improvements. Motion from Walter. I'm sorry, motion, got a motion, excuse me.
Good, well,
No.
Go
Go ahead, Walter.
make a motion to approve the construction of in-ground pool and associated work.
Motion from Walter.
I'll second it.
Second from JD. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Aye for me. Okay, and that leaves us with Kingsview Acres subdivision. Kingsview Acres subdivision request for a 181-day extension on final subdivision approval of Kingsview Acres, 12 lots, single-family homes cluster subdivision. This one has been around for a bit. Any motions on this?
I'll make a motion for the 180-day extension.
Motion from Jane.
Second.
Second from Eileen. Walter.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Eileen.
Aye.
JD.
Aye.
Okay. That takes us through the business items. As I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we're going to take care of a quicker application to let those folks go home. So first up is a new application, Arnold Place vacant parcel, construction of a new single-family dwelling. Development includes site excavation regarding regrading, retaining walls, driveway and stormwater. Application steep slopes, SS 24-03. Arnold Place, section block line number is 106.20-1-12, zone R40. Owner, Arnold Place Realty LLC, care of Anthony D'Agostino, applicant and architect, Thomas Hayes, architect. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Haynes from Haynes Architecture. Hope all is well tonight. We are presenting an application for a new one-family house on a vacant parcel located at Arnold Place. It's an existing flag lot. It has steep slopes on the existing property, and that's why we're required to present in front of you tonight. So we are proposing to extend from the existing cul-de-sac street, a long driveway that goes down to the buildable section of the property, which is located in the middle. Unfortunately, because of the existing conditions, we really don't have any other way around to access the property to create a buildable condition. And we tried to minimize the amount of disturbance and the amount of retaining walls necessary. And that's what we presented, essentially, that referred us to this board today. We did receive a review from Mr. Cleary, I believe it was on Friday, so we had addressed those comments that Mr. Cleary had regarding our development, and I did email them over earlier today. I'm not sure if the board got a chance to review them or receive them, but I do have a copy here. If you like, I can bring you through that very quickly, or I can walk you through a very quick presentation. It's up to how the board wants to handle that.
If you do a quick presentation, we can kind of just get a little bit of better view. And folks, there are seats in the front row. You know, people can move in or just take that front row. There's plenty of room up front.
Okay, so
You can unclip that. Just squeeze down below. There you go.
okay, so Arnold Place is located here to the right of the page. We have a very narrow flag lot condition, as I said, so the flagpole comes down here. It's about 15 feet wide currently. The driveway is going to get proposed down in here, and in order to have a code-compliant driveway, we do actually need to do some backfill in this area to create more of a gentle slope. So it's currently too steep from the street to where the buildable area of the parcel is, that we do have to do some work in that area, which unfortunately happens to pass through elevations of what is considered steep slopes. So we have a continual grade from Arnold Place all the way down to where the driveway would level out at the rear, to the right side of the existing house. And there are going to be trees that were proposed to be removed on this. I just want to make one note, is that when we designed this, it was based off a topography survey that we had that since a permit was since issued approximately a year ago for the builder, Frank Morocco, to start doing some of the clearing and things on this property. So some of these trees that we are proposing on this drawing today have already been removed, maybe 8 to 10 trees or something like that, I believe, have been currently removed. So there are still some other ones in and around the area of the dwelling that we're going to need to do. In order to really minimize the work here, we had, again, it was a balancing act between the pitch of the driveway, getting the house to the elevation where it's buildable. So again, it's only buildable right in this area here. The zoning setback requirements are indicated here with the red dash lines. So it's it becomes an irregular shape because of what the building department categorizes the rear yard setback because of the irregular shaped lot. So as we come down the driveway here into the flat section where we would pull in the garage doors, we have a tiered system of walls here. We try to minimize the impact on the neighbors with the proposed walls, so there are a series of 4-foot-high walls, and they'll step back. So each tier of these walls, as they comes up 4 foot high, it steps back essentially 4 feet. All of those tiers will have planting areas all around them. So I realized on our initial submission to the planning board, the landscaping plan, which we had prepared, did not make it. I do have it today in packages. If anybody's interested in seeing, I can hand those out to you. I also have it on here, so I could just jump forward and show you that really quickly, and then just kind of show you what we're left over with.
I'd like to see a packet also.
Yeah, sure.
I apologize, I haven't been to the site, but you referenced the existing house. There's a house there?
No, this is a vacant
okay,
property.
okay.
Yes, this is vacant currently.
So it's an empty, just so you know, everybody understands, it's an empty lot in the cul-de-sac on Arnold Place.
Correct.
Okay.
So as part of the landscaping plan here, we can't really propose anything from Arnold to where the flag actually opens up. But when it does, we're proposing green giant arborvitaes on either side of the driveway as we come down. And then in and around the house, we're providing landscaping in the front, cherry trees on either side, and then rhododendrons on all of these tiered terrace levels here. So anything that would potentially be visible from a neighboring property would have that beautified with landscaping on those walls as well. So, and again, we tried to minimize the heights of the walls because we could go up to 6-foot walls. We wanted everything 4-foot with planting levels. And then we have a series along the right-hand side here would be a series of 2 walls because of the existing grade conditions. And then it terraces down to 3 across the back. At the driveway level here, we would go down almost a full flight of stairs to the rear of the property, and then essentially in the back section right here, we're creating a level area which would function as the home's rear yard for the family. It's essentially at the basement level. It's only about a 25-foot flat level section that they can enjoy back there with a deck up at the first floor. And then the most important factor here, aside from that slope of the driveway to get us down to where we need to be, the other real driving point here, aside from the zoning setback requirements, was that because of the building code requirements, we can't have and zoning code, we can't have a 3-story structure, so we have to really bring all of the elevation up around 3 sides of the house.
Okay.
That's why everything's tiered the way that is.
Okay, just the comments, nothing to do with the steep slope, but I have a little knowledge on those green giant arborvitaes, just a point, they get big. And they go very wide. So if they're that close to that driveway, you're going to have a very small driveway eventually. But that's outside the steep slope conversation, so that's up to you. So, Pat, where are we with this?
This is their initial presentation, Mr. Chairman, so you heard Mr. Haynes indicated that he's responded to some of the technical comments.
Right.
We haven't seen any of that.
Okay.
So we're not quite ready to take any action on this or set a public hearing until
Yeah.
we see that information. So we're one step away.
Okay, so you have a little bit of couple I's to dot and a couple T's to cross to get you back to us.
Okay.
So this is your first discussion with us, so thank you, but I don't think there's much more I have to say, but unless there's any other questions from board members at this point.
I just had a question about the abutting properties. I couldn't tell, I was really just using Westchester County GIS to look at the surrounding properties, and I couldn't tell what was there. I was having trouble placing the lot, so I don't know what all this grading is doing to your abutters.
So the properties, the home, the adjacent dwellings are not very close. So the
Okay.
one to the right from the cul-de-sac, the one to the right of it is located
So,
somewhere up and around.
In the front,
yeah, and what's the size of your lot, so that'll give us a little context.
a little over 3/4 of an acre.
So it's a decent sized lot.
It is, yeah.
And the neighbor's lot is probably similar.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other property is somewhere.
There's another house up closer on the cul-de-sac on
Yeah,
this side.
somewhere over here.
Yeah.
It'll be located up here to the left of the driveway.
Yeah.
I think it's about 300 feet away or something was the next
And
closest
it's
house.
it's way in front of that house also.
And behind it is vacant.
Correct.
Yeah, it goes all the way
There's
down.
nothing back
It's a
here.
paper road, right?
Correct.
Correct,
Yes.
yep, on the bottom, which goes up in
And
that
is that how you guys are gonna handle the sewer?
So
So I could address that. Actually, right now, that's what's proposed after speaking to the engineering department, because we prefer to do a gravity system. It's basically gonna be up to us working out an easement with that particular paper road and the property owner that I guess is at the end of the paper road. We have, basically could get an approval from the engineering department to pump it up to the manhole that's in the cul-de-sac, which they told us is a non-issue, but the proposal is to try to go gravity to just try to, make it a little simpler for everybody.
I think that makes a lot more sense. How are you doing with the easement?
We've reached out to them, we didn't wanna make too many waves with everybody yet, just because we didn't know, what was gonna happen as far as if it was they were gonna be mandatory to go up to the cul-de-sac or not. So part of the issue with this is, going into this project, we thought that we had more approvals than we did, because we had a meeting with the town prior, and this actually went to the planning and zoning, like back in the 70s or 78, and there's actually a proposed house and everything drawn. So part of the issue that's coming up now, which nobody realized when we had this discussion with the town, is now it's a steep slope issue, not everything else. So this is just kind of bringing everything up to current time now, as far as, steep slope goes. Part of the issue with the steep slope also is the 15-foot area coming into the property is actually elevated above what the actual level of the cul-de-sac going in you stand at the street level and you look in, there's basically a rock outcropping that sticks up. So once that's removed, the property is a lot less steep than what it appears to be, on paper. So it's, yeah, it's literally dead center. It looks like a shark fin sticking up out of the ground. The proposal's to hammer it right now.
Okay, so that stuff you need to kind of iron out a little bit. So, which is what you have to do anyway, right?
Right.
So you have to, again, dot the i's across the t's at some
Yeah,
point.
basically, it's really what it comes down to now is the steep slope permit is what's holding everything up.
Yep.
It looks like, as far as I understand from dealing with everybody, that, everything else is pretty much in
Yep.
order. It's just basically the steep slope aspect of the build.
Okay, so any other questions?
So it's a legal dimension, 1978, they have a variance for the flag lot. So the lot exists, they right to build on it, and there's no steep slope permit, it's not in place. So that's the big one.
I honestly don't believe it's gonna be as much as what's anticipated because of the amount of rock that has to come out from that outcropping, to just fill in around that house.
So do me a favor. Just can you, if you're talking, can you grab that mic?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Because I think it's not being.
Yeah, so based on our analysis, it looks like it's 388 cubic yards, which will be about 20 truckloads of fill.
Okay.
That's just the offset between the cut and yeah, so there's not gonna be anything taken off. We're just gonna disperse that out as part of the fill, and that's it in addition, so we're thinking about 20 truckloads.
Okay. So, I'm going to ask one more time, any other questions from board members? Because I think this one, we're going to get into some conversation once we get to that point. Any other questions? Okay, so we have a couple i's to dot, a couple t's to cross, which is for every application that comes here. You just work with staff. Final remaining things done, and then we look forward to hearing from you again. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay. All right, folks, so we are here for, I think, the majority of people here for item number 1, which became item number 2, but now we're here to talk about it. So it's a new public hearing. And just to provide a little context about a public hearing, this is more of a formal conversation versus the other conversations we've had on this application before. Before, the applicant has been working with staff, the board, other folks to prepare the conversation for tonight. The applicant has also been to the town board many times, and I'm going to ask them to enumerate some of that conversation about where we were or where they have been and where they are today, which will help provide the background about this application. So before we do that, we have some administration items to do. We have a public hearing, which means we need to waive the reading of the public notice.
I move those.
Motion from Jane. Second from Walter. Walter. Jane. Eileen. JD. Okay, that's out of the way. So first, let me just read this. Number 1. Proposed DEP CEC contract number 1, and there's a several of these contracts, but this is the number 1. Kensico campus site preparations, Department of Conservation water supply use, construction of a new water conveyance and supporting facilities. Application site plan number PSP 23-04, location Westlake Drive, Valhalla, New York. Section block number is 117.11-3-1. Zone R40. Owner and applicant, New York City Department of Environmental Protection. Engineer and architect, NYC DEP and internal engineer Sebastian Lopez, PE. Okay, so to the applicant, I'm going to ask you to come up. Because it's a public hearing, we're here to talk to the public, so let's make sure we engage with them. And to the public, hold off thoughts, comments until we get to that point. I am also going to ask the applicant, because of the interest in this application, a couple little operational things. Our mics are pretty good, but sometimes if we have them far away, people do not hear. So if you could hold the mic and put it fairly close to your mouth, it's helpful, because I think it's important for people in TV land who are home to hear what's going on. And we have moved the mic over the last 6-7 months to this side. If you can try to position your body so people can see you a little bit more, it's good for people to see you as opposed to us. We've seen you guys already. We know everything about it at this point. I want to make sure that we're providing the applicant all the information, the public all that they need to know as we proceed in, making sure that the people in the TV world can hear and see, as well as the people here can hear and see. It's important for the board. Okay? With that being said, you guys are up.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the planning board for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you to the members of the public for coming out tonight. My name is Kevin Ellenwood. I'm a deputy portfolio manager with the Department of Environmental Protection, and I'm joined tonight with my colleagues Lorraine Farrell, who was our permitting lead for this project, and Dan Mashad, who is here to represent our operating bureau. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Kensico East 2 Connection Project. Dan is going to start giving us an overview, the purpose, why we're here, to talk about the goals of the project, and then I'll get into some of the details of the project that's before the planning board tonight, which is the first phase of a multi-phase project, the site preparation here at Kensico. Dan?
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, let's see what I'm at. Good evening, everyone. Dan Mashad with DEP. Thanks to the board for having us tonight for this important application.
Just really quick, just make sure we get that mic up, because I think there's people watching us, so make sure you get that sound out there.
Everyone hear me all right?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm a project geologist. I work for DEP with the operating bureau. I've been involved in tunneling projects for DEP since 2011, several deep rock tunnels similar to what we're doing here. I'm going to give you a few slides to start, just to talk about, as Kevin said, the why we're doing this, the importance of this tunnel, and just a basic overview of the water supply. So hopefully everyone here knows, but for those that don't know, New York City supplies water to half the population of New York State, 8.8 million people, including the town here, and many towns along the way. And you can see a map up on the screen there. Our watershed is vast. So mostly in the Westchester County, Putnam County area is the Croton supply. But west of Hudson, up in the Catskill Mountains, we have the Delaware supply and the Catskill supply. All the supplies run through deep rock tunnels, and they cross under the Hudson at various points, and they end up in reservoirs in Westchester County here, and via rock tunnels end up going into the city. So the last large reservoir is the Kensico Reservoir prior to the Hillview Reservoir, which is our control reservoir that then goes into the distribution pipes in the city itself. So both Kensico and Hillview are critical components of New York City, Westchester community's water supply, and together supply roughly 90% of New York City water. The Croton system supplies about 10% of New York City's water. And all water from these reservoirs from the Catskill flow through Kensico, right nearby here, and then eventually to Hillview and then into the city. So here we are. We've been working on a design for many years. We've been to the town board. We've worked with the town's experts on the planning and engineering departments along the way. We've done an environmental impact statement, an EIS. All of this is available out for public view if anyone needs to know where that is. It's on the web. We can provide that. The tunnel is an important project for the Bureau, for DEP, for New York City, and for the town. In roughly 2010, the CatDel UV plant, it's up there, it says CDUV, it came online due to some change in regulations. So some water quality regulations that required the city to add more treatment to the water. When that came online, the existing Catskill Aqueduct that goes from Kensico Reservoir south became too low in elevation to flow up through that plant. So the Catskill Aqueduct still exists today, but it's currently offline. This tunnel is a second connection between the Kensico Reservoir and that UV plant. And so right now we have the Delaware Aqueduct, we have the Catskill Aqueduct still, it's offline and it can't flow through that treatment, so that's why it's offline. And we're building a second tunnel here that will flow through the plant, get the treatment, and provide us that redundancy that we need. So right now, the Delaware Aqueduct that exists between points A and B there is very critical for us. We have a limited ability to shut it down, and this project is a high important project for us. Next slide. So just worth mentioning that south of here, the Hillview Reservoir in Yonkers is also simultaneously undergoing, we'll call it renovations or rehabilitation projects that are important. The upgrades there are happening over the same series of years as the Kensico Tunnel here. We're doing new chemical facilities, we're doing electrical equipment, distribution system work, we're rehabbing historic facilities, and we're bringing that facility into a state of good repair, as we call it, so that it's going to be there for the next generation of people to reliably depend on. And go to the next slide here. How that relates to where we're at today, that Hillview Reservoir is going to need a cover at some point off in the future to comply with new EPA regulations. So at this point, the city is under a consent decree and judgment to advance both the Hillview Reservoir work that's happening simultaneously and this tunnel, which all have to happen before we cover the reservoir. And the reason we have to do it in advance is related to some engineering flow mechanics that require a certain amount of water to pass through that system when we're doing that complex work down at Hillview. So there's a bunch of points here. We're under judgment to do this, so we have milestones with that order to meet. And you can see in parentheses in the second bullet, we have to meet schedule milestones to complete our design, to complete our DEIS and our EIS, our environmental impact statement, which describes the project, public hearings, FEIS permits, construction, and operation. They all have really well-defined milestones for us to meet as an agency. And the KEC tunnel, which we're going to describe in more detail here, Kevin's going to take over in a minute and describe to you how the tunnel is going to be built over the next series of years. That precedes all that work at the Hillview Reservoir down there. So we can't do the Hillview Reservoir work until we finish this tunnel. And it's, as I said before, it's required in accordance with the Hillview consent decree and judgment requirements. And there's some complex project tie-in and sequencing with the cover. That's a critical element to ensure the sufficient transmission capacity, so to ensure that the water can make it down through the system at the rate that needs to go without any limitations to that. Yep. So here's an aerial image, just to orient you. You can see Kensico Reservoir on the right, and then the dotted line that's kind of a pinkish color is we call it the Kensico campus. So that's our Shaft 18, as it might be known, facility with the Kensico lab, former lab, and some other buildings on that campus where the water enters into the existing Delaware Aqueduct and heads south from there over to, on the left side of that image, the CDUV facility. CDUV, again, is Catskill Delaware Ultraviolet Facility. So that's a treatment facility where the deep rock tunnels go underground a few hundred feet, and then they come up, they get treated, and then they go back down to the south to Hillview Reservoir. So both sites are part of this project. Today we're going to be talking about the first contract. So this is a public hearing for the first contract, which is known as our site prep contract, which involves some work. You can see the pointer that Lorraine is pointing at. There's a new road we're putting in. We're going to be replacing Westlake Drive, which goes through our campus. We're going to be putting a new road on the north side of that property. And then we're going to be doing electrical building work and some prep for the future tunneling contract. So Today, we're focusing on just the initial site prep work. There'll be another public hearing in the future for the actual tunnel itself, which is a water tunnel, and the facilities associated with moving that water, so a screening facility and the connections on the UV side. Next. So the goals and benefits of this project, we want to construct a second connection. As I said, right now we have the Delaware Aqueduct. We still have the Catskill Aqueduct, but it doesn't go through treatment, so it's there for emergencies, but it's not currently operational. Historically, there have always been two connections. It gave us flexibility of how to move water. So moving this tunnel forward expeditiously is important to the agency. In 2012, the Catskill was shut down when we brought the UV facility online, as I mentioned, and this will store that second connection. And just to note, the town of Mount Pleasant will also have a new connection at the Kensico Reservoir for the water that you take and is served through the distribution mains to the residents of Mount Pleasant, one of our customers. And this new tunnel is sized to meet New York City and Westchester County demand. So it's a larger tunnel. We're thinking into the future 50 years. What will the population in New York City be? What will the population upstate be? It's not a similarly sized tunnel to what we have today. It's going to be a little bit on the oversized side to think about that future planning criteria. And by doing this, we ensure that we don't have any interrupted supply delivery to any of the customers here in Mount Pleasant, in the city, that everybody has reliable water going into the future at all times. So these are our summary bullets on the purpose and need, the why we do it. We want to enhance the operational resiliency and redundancy. We like having two instead of just one, so the redundancy is important to us. We can move the water to that treatment facility, the UV facility, and get it treated and make it compliant to meet the drinking water standards that we need to comply with from the New York State Health Department. We preserve the potential to bypass the Kensico Reservoir. So if there's an issue in the Kensico Reservoir and we can't move water through that reservoir, this project would allow us to bypass the reservoir temporarily and deal with that while we're still supplying water south. We also can take one tunnel offline while we fix the other tunnel. We can repair things with the existing Delaware Aqueduct, and we can provide compatibility with future infrastructure projects. So it's important that this all speaks together in the future vision for what the agency is doing here to bring this reservoir or this facility, all our facilities upstate, into a state of good repair, into a state of reliable repair, and make sure they're there when we need it every day. So at this point, I'm going to hand this back to you, Kevin. We're going to talk a little bit about what the project itself is. Like I said, we're going to give you more on the whole water tunnel and the layout and the future years of how this will look. But again, today's public hearing is focused more about the site prep portion of that.
Thanks, Dan. Pardon me. And I'm going to do my best to make that distinction between what is the overall project itself versus what are we presenting, what's before the board for approval today on this first phase, especially when we get to talking about what the Kensico site down the street will look like at the end of the project. So again, on the overview, we are essentially constructing a 2-mile-long deep rock tunnel. We'll start with a shaft here at the Kensico site. Thank you. That's 300 feet in the ground, not easily accessible. We'll also construct another shaft at our UV facility at Eastview. That's about 400 feet down below the ground surface, and then a 27-foot diameter tunnel in between. Thanks. So, once we turn that on, we don't go back. It'll be full of water. And then at both sites, we'll be constructing what we say supporting facilities. So at the Kensico campus, that's a new electrical building and a screen chamber. And then at the Eastview site, it'll be a connection chamber into our existing facility. So you can see the alignment there. That's on a zoning map. We're in an R40 zone. So we've worked with, we've been in communication with all of the property owners that are along that alignment to talk about a subsurface easement. And as Dan said, we've worked through an environmental assessment. We've drafted, we've completed an EIS last summer, and we had the public comment period on that. Okay. Okay, so this is the Kensico campus as it looks today. This is the one that's just, half a mile down the road south of here. So pardon me, as you're looking at this, just to orient you, north is to the right. So we're looking eastward. You can see Kensico Reservoir in the background. Columbus Avenue, that's the road that's running on the bottom of the page. So just to point out a few things that Dan spoke to, Stan said our currently out of service Catskill Aqueduct, water enters from Kensico Reservoir at what we call the upper effluent chamber. And that's, if it were in service, that's where it would enter this leg of the Catskill Reservoir. On the south side, if you look, it's hard to make out, but you can actually faintly see the old aerator, like the water fountains that used to be in operation. That's that grassy area, right around there. So I may refer to that later in the presentation as the Catskill aerator. That's what I mean. There's no fountain anymore, but that's what we refer to that area. And then if you look at the southern end or the right side of the property, we have shaft 18. That is in operation, and that's where water from Kensico Reservoir enters the Delaware Aqueduct. And then aptly, the grassy area in front of that we refer to that as the Delaware aerator. And then, as you all, I'm sure, know, we have Westlake Drive, which separates our site, and it's a publicly accessible roadway. Okay. Okay, so this is where I need to make a distinction. So this shows you what we propose. This is a rendering of the final site conditions after all phases of work. So this is looking 10 years in the future. But this, the phase that we have before the board is a portion of this. So I'll just kind of talk briefly through all the items in here. So as Dan said, one of the first activities we're going to do is construct Westlake Drive on the northern left side of the screen there. And once we do that, we can create a single secured site for our operations, so we're able to close down the portion of Westlake Drive that runs through our site. At the same time that we'll be constructing the Westlake Drive, we're also going to be constructing a parking lot, and that'll be used by the adjacent high school. So we understand that there's some parking on Westlake Drive where it is now, but now this puts the students or others a lot closer to the school. We'll also be doing site work at Kensico. You can see in the renderings those piers, so we'll have some new grading. We'll be installing trees and shrubs and trees throughout the two areas. Up towards the top, you can see it says proposed KEC screen chamber. That's the new contract, the new structure that will be in a future contract. But that's where water from Kensico will come in. We'll make our connection to the new tunnel. The tunnel itself, the shaft, you won't see it. You could barely make it out on that rendering. You won't be able to see it, from Columbus, but you can kind of see that's a vent shaft for the shaft itself. It's that tiny little dot in front of the screen chamber. And then some other work, we're going to be constructing a police booth in a future contract. That'll be similar in concept to the police booth that we have at our UV facility. And then, as I mentioned before, we'll be constructing a new electrical building. So that'll be in this contract. We'll consolidate power to the site. Okay, so here is the forecast for the various phases of work that we have in this project. So we have actually issued the first contract, the one that we're talking about tonight for the Kensico site prep, and that will be about 2.5 years. And then the next contract number 2, aptly named Kenzies number 1, is the, that's where we'll be constructing the 2 shafts and the tunnel that I spoke about. And we're currently procuring that contract. We expect to issue that contract at the end of this year, and then that'll go on for a number of years. The third contract, Kenzies number 3, we get back on track there. That's where we'll be constructing basically the above ground buildings, and we'll be commissioning the whole thing. So we're finishing up the design of that. We anticipate starting that sometime in 2026, 2027, and that'll essentially be the last contract. We're going to take that all the way through, commission the tunnel, restore all the sites. And then I apologize, I forgot to mention on the last slide that we also have another contract that we're finishing the design of that this year. We'll be presenting it to the town later this year, next year. We'll see how it goes. But we are extending some of the shoreline improvements that we've already done. So that's in the area of the UEC, where the water comes in from into the Catskill, and that it essentially it improves the water quality, right? We're hardening the shoreline so we don't have we avoid turbidity issues. Okay, so let's get into contract number 1. Go to the next slide. I'd rather talk through this by showing you a picture, so I'm just gonna run through these quickly just so you see them, but I want to talk to a visual so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. So this first contract, of all the things I talked about before, here we're talking about a staging area, so that's setting up construction trailers. We're actually setting up staging for all contracts at Kensico, clearing and grubbing, that's earthwork. We're going to be managing excavated material. Our goal is to create what's called a balanced site. So anything we excavate on site, we're going to place back on site, so we eliminate trucking material off site. Construction of relocated Westlake Drive, construction of the 30-space parking lot. I spoke about that. That's the parking lot that will be conveyed to the high school. I'll touch on this in the next slide. I don't think it appears. Construction of a new interim operations entrance. That's not going to be in the final condition of the site. That's just something that we need during construction. Construction of the new electrical building, stormwater practices. And then for this first phase of work, we anticipate work between 7 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. Okay, so now this is different from the rendering I showed before. This focuses on what we care about tonight. So we're going to generally work from the north side of the site to the south side, so from left to right. The first thing we're going to want to do is set up stormwater practices. We'll set up construction trailers, CM trailers. That's at the end of the aerator road. So the smaller of our 2 entrances to the site on Columbus, there's that small gate there. And then we'll start constructing relocated Westlake Drive, and the parking lot. And as we begin to excavate there, we're going to, as I said, place material back on site in the Catskill aerator area. And then we're going to move in phases to limit disturbance. We're going to keep, we're required to keep disturbance no more than 5 acres site-wide for any work we do. So before we move on to another phase, we'll stabilize the soil before we move on. And we'll continue working like that. We'll begin excavating where we intend to construct the screen chamber. But again, the screen chamber structure itself That's a future contract. We're also going to construct the temporary operations entrance that's on the south end of the site, and we propose to bring that entrance out right where Lakeview Avenue is. And then by doing that, we can effectively isolate our construction activities from our active operations, because this has to continue to be an active DEP site, and we also isolate our construction activities from the public. So once we construct that temporary operations entrance and relocated Westlake Drive, then we'll shut down Westlake Drive, and it becomes the contractor's entrance. So during construction, we will have construction fencing around our site along Columbus Avenue. And what we have proposed meets the town code, but we understand that as this is a long duration project, when you look at all contracts, we understand that aesthetics need to be considered. So because time is of the essence with all of our contracts, we propose that we move forward with the site plan for this item with the construction fence per town code, but that we work in good faith with the planning board to make sure that the next phase, the one that's in procurement now, we can incorporate a construction fence that's more aesthetically pleasing. Okay. All right. So here again, we have kind of a mix of final conditions for the first phase, final conditions for the end, but I'll talk through some of that. So, pardon me. So this is a view from Columbus Avenue, the northernmost part of our property. This is looking at what is the parking lot. It's a 30-space lot, and so we're kind of facing, mostly looking east up the new relocated Westlake Drive. So it'll be 30 spots, a one-way in and a one-way out, and then not shown in the rendering, we'll have lighting around the parking lot. It'll all be solar powered, so we don't connect to any existing services. And then on the bottom, that's looking directly east up what will be the relocated Westlake Drive. The fence there, that's what we're proposing for the end. So that's what it'll look like once we're done and I walk away. Dan continues to be here and maintain. Can we just go back one second? But what I do want to show, and I believe we show it on some of the other slides, the fill that we're planning here, it returns the area to more natural contours. We don't want to leave the site a big hole in the ground or a giant mountain. Okay. Okay, so here is another, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading that. This is another view of relocated Westlake Drive. This is looking east. Okay, so we've oriented Westlake Drives. We need to snake our way past two existing Con Edison towers. So you can see one of those on the left. So we'll have a retaining wall there in order for us to keep a more gentle slope, if you will. And then we'll have an access ramp up and an access ramp down for Con Edison use. And then one on the top right, that's looking southerly. This is Kensico Reservoir would be to your left. And if you continue down straight back through the screen there, you would be able to see our UEC facility. But after we're done, that will be gated off, and you'll instead curve dogleg right towards Columbus Avenue. So there you can see one of the on-ramps on the right there up to the Con Edison Tower. And then you could see some of the proposed plantings as well. Okay. Okay, so rock blasting. So certainly when we get to construction of the two shafts and a little bit of the tunnel, we'll get into rock blasting. The majority of the tunnel excavation will be by a tunnel boring machine. But for this first phase, we may or may not have rock blasting. This is left up to the contractor. In the area of the screen chamber, the rock is fairly shallow, so they will have to excavate some rock. So they need to determine if it's better to blast or to mechanically excavate. So if they decide to blast, we work with the town, we work with the building department. They'll perform a pre-blast survey, they'll bring in a blasting expert, and then we'll monitor. We have a robust monitoring program, both for noise and vibration. And again, that's all per approval by the building department. And then we're very good at this. We're constructing 2 shafts simultaneously today, so we really do communicate this well. If this is the way we go with this first phase, those that need to be notified are notified, and we take this very seriously, and we do what we can to limit the impact to to the neighbors. Okay. Pardon me. Okay, so the timeline of the tree and vegetation removal. So, as I said, the first contract is a site preparation contract. It sets the stage for all the other contracts at Kensico. So to the extent that we can, we limit the tree clearing that's needed up front. If we don't need to clear trees, why do it? So the tree removals that we have in this contract are necessary. And then on the back end, when we can effectively replant and reestablish, we will. But we are working throughout the site, so there are restrictions on what we can do there. But just generally speaking, this is how we're going to proceed with tree clearing. So there's tree clearing now, and that's to accommodate a restriction on tree clearing that begins after the end of this month. After the end of this month, we get into the roosting season for the Indiana bat. So there's certain trees that we need to clear now in order for us not to disturb Indiana bat and other bat species that we know are in the area, so that we can continue our work for the rest of the year. And then once we are out of that roosting season, at the end of the year, we'll have additional tree clearing that's necessary for the next set of work. And then this first contract, when we complete this first contract, we have some renderings of what we're going to show. But we're going to really just focus on herbaceous plantings, so it's basically non-trees. And the reason we're doing that is we want a contract where we can manage it to give the trees enough of an establishment period to make sure that they're thriving. And we don't have the time in the first contract to do that. So we're going to follow it up immediately with the next contract that's in procurement. So then that will just continue for the next set of years. That we'll have tree clearing again in the fall and winter of '26 for the shoreline work, and that's we can defer that until then, until we need to commence that work, and then we'll have some more tree clearing again in the summer of '27 for the buildings contract, and then then we start our plantings in earnest, the final plantings in 28, 29, and 31. Okay, so this is a little hard to read, I apologize. The landscaping plan for this first site prep. So now, to orient you, north is north. So Columbus Avenue is on the left side. So we propose, again, not final overall, final for this site, that we we'll grade the soil, we'll plant a mixture of meadow mixes and grass mowed turf. The idea here is to stabilize the soil. We also have an interest in native plantings. So you'll see in the meadow mixes, they're native plantings, and we have an interest in invasive species control. So that will occur with this one and then throughout all of our contracts. And the goal here is, to the extent possible, remove the invasives, plant natives, and turn the site over to Dan to make their jobs easier, because this is something that they have to deal with all the time. Okay, thanks. So this is what I say when I mean meadow mix. I have to read to these. I can't see from the photos, but the one that's my favorite is the milkweed and with the butterflies. But you can see the common milkweed and blue stem and goldenrod, etc. So that's what I mean by meadow mix. Can we just quickly go back one so we can just... Yeah, so that's most of those areas. You could see for most of the site, once we're done with this first phase, that's what it's going to look like. And that'll be in place until we have more time in certain areas to plant trees and shrubs. Okay, and then this one in those key areas, this is just some other species for the detention basins. Okay, so now we're talking years from now, what the final conditions would look like. Right, so now we've removed that construction fence. We've installed a new fence that's more pleasing. We have final grades where the contours are more natural looking, and we've got robust trees throughout. And in the corners there, the orange and greens, that's some of the meadow mixes. And then you can see that's a rendering of our proposed permanent police booth. Okay, so this is same concept, just rotated a little bit, so you can just get another vantage point. That our goal here is to create something that is pleasing to the public visually, and that's what we're striving to do. And you can see the trees. We're trying to screen some of the buildings from your view, but then, as I said, also bring back some natives. And that's that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before we proceed, folks, if anybody wants to move up, we have seats up front if you're interested. But before we proceed, any questions or comments from board members? Okay.
Questions for the public.
Yep, we'll get to that. So a couple quick questions from you just to put some context around it. How long can you just kind of, at a high level, very high, how long you've been working on this, where you've been?
Can you take that?
Yep.
So,
And just speak through the mic. You can.
Yeah, so I'm fairly recent to the project, but Dan Machado, he's been working on this project for years, so I'd like to allow him to speak to that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the active design has been more recent years. I've been working on this since 2012, more in a planning capacity. So looking at what the water supply needs are into the future, what the existing water supply demands in the city are, what those projections are going forth into, and putting all that together into a good plan so that we can design and build this tunnel once. It's not easy mid-construction to, make a change, make it a little bigger. So we put a lot of thought into that, and it started years ago Basically, when the UV plant came online, we knew right away we needed to build another project to replace that lost capacity in the Catskill. There was also alternatives other than a deep rock tunnel. We looked at several different things. So we've been working on this for quite a while.
Okay, and what would happen if this tunnel did not happen? If it did not happen? The inverse. If the tunnel wasn't built?
Yeah, we would continue to operate as we operate today. We have the Delaware online. We meet demand with that aqueduct. If there's an emergency, we can bring the Catskill back online, but it would not be treated water.
Okay.
It would be a severe emergency in this city.
Okay, my last question, this is the smallest of the potatoes.
One more thing, we have the Croton system too at 10%. We could always bring Croton on in an emergency.
Okay. Smaller question, just the parking lot. What is the intended use of the parking lot? Just for some-
I can take it. It's for the school. So there would. Take this off. So there was a slide about midway when you could see the existing conditions of Westlake Drive. It was an aerial image, and you could see cars parked along what is existing Westlake Drive. I think it's the aerial. Yeah, you can see all the cars lined up along Westlake Drive. Those are all students. So we recognize, mostly students. So we recognize right away that if we're going to close that and we're going to put a new road in, the only fair thing to do was for us to construct a lot for the students with the school. So at the city's expense, we're putting that lot in. We're working with the school. We're going to give them an easement to operate that as a school lot, to maintain it and make it safe. There's going to be a shorter walk to the campus. Right now they come down, they walk all the way down to Columbus. So they're going to be right on the corner of the school campus with this new lot. So
Yeah, and one of the questions I was asking was who was going to maintain that lot and who was going to, so we just have that in, can we just enumerate
the
that?
school, yeah.
The school.
We've come to agreement with the school on that. Yep.
So what would be beneficial would be to get some sort of letter or email or
Sure.
conversation from them saying that they are aware of that and they're going to assume that responsibility.
Absolutely. Our Director of Outreach, John's here. He's dealt with the superintendent on this. We've been working on an agreement for quite a while with the school. They're very excited about this, I'll say. I won't speak for them beyond that, other than, we can provide to you that proof and relationship.
Yep.
And we're also interested in going to be doing some sessions with the high school students to teach them about rock tunnels. We're going to use it as an educational opportunity to
That's always
try to
good.
stimulate some future employees here,
Well,
in the town.
The world needs engineers and people like yourself, so that's a good thing.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members at this point? And we'll talk to the public in a moment. Okay. Just to put a little context, it is 8:34. We have a lot of people here tonight, which is good. And I'm going to imagine we're going to have a lot of conversation. I'm going to ask the applicant and staff to take some good notes, get their pencils sharpened, and detail the questions that are coming to you, to the board as well as to themselves. I'm going to imagine also, just due to the size of the conversation that we're going to have tonight, this will most likely, I think, and I'll let the board decide that, be the first public hearing. But we are here to hear the applicant. The applicant has the right to go through this process, which is what he's doing, or they are doing. But you are here, obviously, because you have the right to express your views. So we're going to put a little order around it just to make sure everybody has time. I'm not going to time people per se, but I'm going to ask people to try to keep it to 3 minutes, if you can. Because there's a lot of people here, have a lot of feedback, a lot of questions need to be addressed, so we're going to get as much as we can. If you hear things, if you say things that have already been said, maybe you don't need to say, but up to you. It is a public hearing. Just to put the structure around it, I'm going to ask people to raise their hands in a moment. If you get a number, you can talk. If you don't get a number and you're going to halfway through the public comment period have some thoughts, you're going to have to hold off to another point. I'm also going to point out, if you're shy, if you don't want to say anything tonight, if you don't feel there's enough time to say everything you want to say, staff, Carolyn over here, she's a wonderful admin to the board, can also get questions from you through email, which have the same purpose as they do verbally. Or if you're one of the folks that want to do both oral and written, you feel free to do that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to ask folks now to raise your hand. I'll assign you a number, and we'll go through the process together. Okay? So we're going to start off. Oh, we've got a lot of good folks here. So I may give wrong numbers, so I need you guys to help me. So if I give you the wrong number, don't get upset. So right over to the right, I'm going across the middle here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, 13, 14. Anybody else? Going once, this is like an auction. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, so really important before you come up, I know a lot of people in TV land are watching us, so as I instructed the applicant, make sure the mic is close to your mouth. We want to make sure people hear. And to the applicant, I'm going to ask you to sharpen your pencils and take some good notes. Okay, so we have number 1. What's that? Oh, folks, you can sit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to know when you,
Excuse me, can we get a name for the record, please?
oh, Craig,
And let me just, I'm sorry, just a little more context around it. So at this point, you're addressing the board. You don't address the applicant. He listens to everything. Not he, they. They listen to everything, but everything comes through us to them, and then vice versa. So they don't ask you questions, they ask us questions, they ask to you, and vice versa.
okay.
That way we maintain good order.
So I want to know, when they dig the shaft, is that going to connect directly to the UEC, or are they going to, in other words, dig another shaft? Are they going to have to make a cofferdam around the UEC? Because when they made the cofferdam around shaft 18, it was really noisy. So I just want to know what the noise is going to be like.
Okay. So to the applicant, can you answer that question now, or are you sharpening your pencils as well? Can you address that question? You can just stay right to the side in case. I want to make sure you're covered. There's no extra charge for you being up here.
So, no, we won't have the UEC directly connected to the shaft. There are existing tunnels, so that'll be in a later phase of construction. But we will construct a new tunnel from the UEC, bring it over to the screen chamber, and then the connection will actually happen in that area. But to your point, for the UEC itself, we are going to be putting in a bulkhead. So we basically isolate that upper effluent chamber as a structure from the reservoir, so we can pump out all the water and do our work. Anything else?
Yep.
And I don't think we could do back and forth.
No, yeah, folks. So, thank you very much. Okay, no, that's a fair question. So, and just again, folks, this is going to be the first public hearing. I think we need, my opinion as one board member, we need more than one public hearing. So, which is why I emphasize sharpening the pencils, because I'm going to ask the applicant to take these notes and come up with salient or pertinent or whatever word we want to use.
Detailed response.
Detailed responses, excuse me. Number 2, and you have a name, I'm sure.
Yes. Good evening, I'm John. And I just wanted to say that the department did a great... Sure, John Garabetta.
And where are you from, High Level?
331 Columbus, right
Okay,
across
thank
the
you.
street. So I just wanted to say that I thought that they did a great job kind of with the aerators on both sides, or at least it was a vast improvement from the cement. And my only feedback was that the trees were on the short side. I'm not sure how many years ago that was, but I'm still taller than a lot of them. So I would just ask maybe a couple of larger trees.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much. I think applicant is writing as we speak. Number 3.
Hi, my name is Dr. Charles Keller, 8 Highclere Lane.
Thank you.
I notice from the pictorial evidence here that the pipe will bisect Columbus Avenue. I wonder between Sergio's Restaurant and Lakeview Avenue, at exactly what point would that intersect Columbus Avenue? I live rather close to that pipe potential, and I just wonder if I was going to get a pipe up my basement or something. Could that be more specific as to where that will go? And what happens after it bisects Columbus Avenue? Will it be parallel to Lakeview Avenue going on? Or this?
What we probably need to get is, at the next hearing, which would be good, a couple things. To address your comment, I think we probably need to get a sheet showing where this is going, and probably need a lot of copies, which would be good for the public. I'm also going to ask, and it came to me before, and we've been doing this recently, is to get some of the plan put into the library, because I want people to be able to go somewhere to see it as well. I mean, a lot of it's online, but I want to be able to put it in the library. So Carolyn and staff can help you coordinate that activity. So to answer your question, we're going to get more information, more handouts, number one. We're going to have stuff put into the library, but in terms of exactly, and I think this question we could address quickly, is the question he's asking is, where is this pipe going across Columbus Avenue? He lives on Highclere Lane, which I know is, not Sergio, is it Sergio's? I forget now. What's that restaurant there? Sergio's?
Sergio's.
I was blanking out.
Good Mediterranean.
Which is, so can we quickly address where that pipe is going to go in relation to Highclere Lane, which is next to Sergio's?
That's right.
I'll jump up there. Kevin, come on up. And the depth. I'm sorry? And the depth.
Do I claim rights to the pipe if it goes close to my house?
It won't. Let me adjust the board here.
You don't want that, believe me.
So the big thing to keep in mind is that, yes, it'll cross under Columbus, but it'll be 400 feet in rock below Columbus Ave. So there's no basements. It's going to come anywhere close to. And any home that this tunnel will go under, and it's a 150-foot width around that tunnel, we're working with those landowners to secure easements and rights at that depth. So we have a map here that we've submitted.
And
It's actually
and that issue is not on Highclere Lane.
right, and it's on the one pager that some folks have picked up today, where it crosses Columbus. There's an image there.
Okay, so we're going to get a ton of copies of that.
we're gonna send that to you, to the
Yes.
chair, and
So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to recap, one thing, folks, and thank you, you can sit down, everybody. I forgot to say, and I was negligent to say in the beginning, I don't think it's going to be an issue tonight, but I want to say that at 11 o'clock, we're going to need to wind down. So, but I think we have plenty of time. But again, I think this is going to be the first public hearing. No one's going to be not heard. So whether it's tonight or a future one, we're going to hear everybody. So, okay, we were at number 2, I believe. Four. Oh, thank you. I see it.
You're up to 4.
Joan usually does that for me. Thank you. Number 4. Hi, just your name, welcome, number 1, name and all that for the record.
I'm Lisa Freeman. I live on Highclere Lane, and I don't believe you answered Charles's question as to where that pipe. These are terrible renderings. This is inexcusable. I don't see any clarity in terms of where this pipe will go, how Columbus Avenue or Highclere Lane will be affected. We are right across the street from Phase 1, and I don't hear any details about how Highclere Lane is going to be affected in terms of not just the road being built, but what Charles is asking, which is where is the pipe going? Is it going to be affecting people on Highclere Lane? Has everyone been contacted, or are we potentially going to be contacted in the future on Highclere Lane? And my second question is, there has been a tree holocaust across from Highclere Lane where you're building that road. We only heard about it after, we were notified of this meeting, and I wanted to know what you are doing to preserve any trees. Are there going to be efforts? I know there are bats that we're trying to protect. I'm an environmental a person who considers myself an
So,
environmentalist,
ma'am, can I
and
ask
I
you-
would like to know what you're doing to preserve
Ma'am.
the environment.
Just remember to speak to the board.
Yeah,
Just present,
that's-
and do me a quick favor, because you're saying a lot of good things. Can you just grab the mic?
I'm done.
You're done? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to point out, yes, we do need more detailed comments prepared for Highclere Lane particularly, and all the neighbors. And so we'll get into that conversation. And thank you for your comments. That brings me to number 5.
Jim, can I just raise one other question?
Yes.
Can you tell the folks where they can access the DEIS? It's on your website, correct? Could you just give the folks that address?
You have the page for it?
So Jim, you may want to say, for those who are interested in the environmental issues, there's a full environmental impact statement that's
Yep.
publicly available, and it is available.
Yep.
Yeah, it's on the one page.
Just-
Okay, so we don't-
For the record.
Yeah.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Okay, everyone, so the one pager here, sorry, board? The one
Yep.
pager here, which we provided to the board, we will send PDFs, you have extras, you can place it on the town's website or wherever you like. Our EIS is at the newyorkcity.gov site, so if you go to www.newyorkcitynyc.gov, and then there's a bunch of slashes as there usually are, but /site /DEP /about /Kensico-Eastview-Connection.page. That's what we have here. If that doesn't come up on the newyorkcity.gov site, it should be relatively easy to find it. We try to make these things very accessible to the public. We'll send over to you, Chair, your Chair, the correct address, make sure you have it all.
Yeah. And all of that stuff, I think, too, if we can figure out a way to get that to the library as well.
Yeah, so that's just what we were going to say, that it's already available with the town clerk.
It's in the town, that's great, it's in the town clerk, but can we get a copy for the Mount Pleasant Library?
I believe there is one with the library as well.
I think that's very good for our folks there are folks here that I know that are not of the digital age. So if we can get it in the library, let's get it in the library and allow people to get that. And if you want to go see it in the library, you can see. You don't have to sit in town hall. You can spend your leisure in the Pleasantville Library looking at it. Number 5.
Jim Russell from Hawthorne. I believe that it's premature for a public hearing regarding a matter on which the public has not been adequately informed by the DEP, which is the lead agency, or by the town. I just learned of the magnitude of this water tunnel project a few days ago, and the details of this site plan application today. A public notice dated March 8th was just emailed last Friday, March 15th, and no link to the actual site plan application was included. A document like this is very good, but it really should have been distributed about 3 years ago. Because during the state environmental quality review process, there were comments from only one resident at the December 7th, 2022 public hearing. I believe that we need several public education sessions presented to the residents of Mount Pleasant, and residents should be notified of these sessions by email. A recurring theme in the secret handbook is the importance of public participation. According to the handbook, public participation should be encouraged early on at the scoping stage. On page 106, it is stressed, there are 2 key aspects to effective public participation in scoping. Number 1, timely, sufficient, and accurate notice about the project, and scoping to interested and potentially affected parties. And number 2, effective means for the public to provide timely comments to the lead agency. For the public to productively participate in scoping, they should receive sufficient notice to understand the proposed project, the scoping process, and overall SECRA environmental impact statement, and the application review processes. And unfortunately, in this case, these objectives have not yet been realized. That's why we need some public education sessions where we could have interactive questions with the DEP to find out details. Actually, it'd be nice if the secret process was reopened so that public hearings could be had with people who have enough information to make informed comments. And also, how will Mount Pleasant benefit from this? The Eastview site seems to be south of the dam. Is that water going to somehow get into our local water districts and perhaps help us with our haloacidic acid problems. So I think we really need to have a few sessions and review this matter with the DEP.
Okay, and recognize the fact that this is the first public hearing, and we are going to be talking a little bit more. So thank you for your comments. Number 6.
Hi, my name is Betty Brady, and I live on Highclere Lane also.
Just grab that mic like you're singing a song.
Okay. You don't want me to sing. So my name is Betty Brady, and I also live on Highclere Lane.
Yep.
My question is, who's paying for this?
The question is, who is paying for it?
Right, is it going to come out of my taxes?
Well, it depends on which taxes you're talking about, right?
Well, I pay enough taxes.
Well, okay, let's let the applicant answer that question.
Are you done? You have more questions?
No, that's it. I'd like to hear the answer.
Okay, the ratepayers of New York City, so our water, including the folks in Mount Pleasant, purchase water along the way and in New York City, and the rates govern go up if we have to fund these projects. So that's why it's important for us to keep these projects cost competitive, as efficient as possible to keep the rates down. So it's not a tax, it's a ratepayer. So the folks in the city are purchasing water. That's what funds all this.
Let's unpack, and 1 second, ma'am. Let's unpack that for 1 second. So it's not a tax, right? So Mount Pleasant buys water from the New York City water supply. So we're saying that rate most likely will increase.
Not most likely, it could.
It could.
It could, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the rates, the cost of water, our capital construction projects are included in that. So
Okay.
we are very focused on cost efficiency, schedule, and delivering these projects responsibly.
So what I think we probably need, I know what you're thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a water purchaser too in town. Do you have projections, and you don't have to answer us tonight, do you have projections on that increase?
I don't.
Can you put some thought into it for the future?
You want to take that, John, or?
Sure. The increases are regulated by, sorry, let me get out the microphone.
The water rates are determined by the Water Board of New York City. Increases are regulated by the DEC. They go up annually at a rate that's prescribed usually around May. For Mount Pleasant, it's what would be called the wholesale rate. The city, the town buys water in bulk and then processes it and charges it in. But the infrastructure as a whole is baked into the rates. The rates are covering the costs of the tunnel we're building under the Hudson River, of maintaining the Catskill Aqueduct, of maintaining the Delaware Aqueduct, of maintaining the 19 reservoirs and 3 lakes. So all the infrastructure is covered by the rates.
So I'm going to just say, I'm going to ask you to put a little bit more of a detailed, thank you for your comments,
Sure.
put a little bit more detailed comments on that together. And I will say, Mount Pleasant's going to endure a little bit of a hardship for many years. And it would be something to think about. How is Mount Pleasant different than other municipalities? And I'll just say it that way. Okay?
All right.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, no, and you're not going anywhere yet.
Not yet. I still didn't quite get an answer. So who's paying for this? I understand about the water.
Yep.
But who's paying for this major construction that's going to happen over the next 10 years?
Well, New York City, essentially. New York City, through the rate, through the revenue they're collected through the water rate, which at some point it does hit us as one of the many purchasers of the water along the way.
So the next town board meeting that we have in regard to this, there'll be a presentation about how much this water is going to cost over the next 10 years from this gentleman?
I would have some expectations on some forecasting or some thoughts around it.
Not checking his head, so I don't
I
know.
think, if I could just step in here for a second, I think what they're saying is that the rates annually go up in May, regardless of any infrastructure work that's being done. They're already incorporated into that annual rate.
I understand that.
So this particular project is not going to increase the rate exponentially at all. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to-
I mean, I'll say we'll take the comment back. Appreciate the comment. It's a good comment. For me to stand here and predict the rates into the future, You know, that's very difficult. We can look at the rates in the past.
Well, that's a good comment to make, because the
Yeah.
historical analysis would be something we can look at, look back 10 years, what has the rate increase been for the last 10 years? And then, yeah, we can't
Right.
forecast, we don't know anything 10 years from now or 5 years from now, but I think you can put some level of mathematical analysis around some
Yeah.
high-level projections, but the big variance, obviously, because the variance is not going to be understood until that time period. But it is a fair question, and I think it's a good question. And I'm also a purchaser, as I said, of the water, so I want to have an understanding myself.
Sure, we'll
Thank
take
you.
that back and put some thought into it. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that was number 6. Number 7. Okay, just don't be shy, grab that mic, and state your, sing a song. No, just your name.
Sing.
Your name and all that for the record.
My name is Michael. I've been living in the neighborhood for 25 years. And I've noticed with all the recent construction that's going around here, developing that's going around here, we have differences in animals, and I have all kinds of different animals that come on my property that I never had before. Coyotes and snakes and all kinds of other stuff. So with all this disrupting the land, where are these animals going to be going? And I also noticed that we have flooding on Columbus Avenue that we never had before, since they put that new shopping mall down there. So I live directly across the street from this project.
And just so I understand, where do you live?
Columbus Avenue, 307, right across the street from the high school, right directly across from where all that stuff is coming.
Gotcha, okay.
So how am I getting out of my driveway? How is my young daughter going to walk over there to go to school and all that kind of stuff? It's the safety issues being addressed.
Right, so let me just make sure I understand the question. So let me double click into that for a minute. So your questions were about the animals and the wildlife.
Right.
Right. And the second question you had was about flooding or water. Right. And I think there was a third question in there about traffic and.
The traffic, yes, because like I said, I got to come out of my driveway. My neighbors, my family has to come out of the driveway. I have a handicapped son who has a bus that has to come in my driveway and pick him up. Is this going to be affected?
Okay. Okay, thank you. So in the EIS that's out there, which, no, you're good, thank you. So in the EIS that has been done on this project, there's a lot of information, which you guys are going to have to pluck some of that information from there and put that together for the public. It's been thought out already, but we're going to have this conversation again. So we are up to number 7, which means we're at number 8.
Good evening. I'm Peter Lenz. I live on Lakeview Avenue. I'm a professional geographer. I have worked previously in the planning industry, both at the city, state, and federal level, as an employee of the Department of the Interior. My father retired from DEP as the chief of electricians at Hillview Reservoir. I am very aware of the planning process in DEP as a whole. I had no idea any of this was happening until the last few days. As someone who's very plugged into this, the fact that I did not know this suggests that there's been a very poor effort at communicating with the public. I strongly urge this board to very carefully consider the things that are in that FEIS. It has been written, but it can be rewritten, and I want to remind you guys of that. I have several things in specific that I would like to point out for this board's consideration. First, a lot of information was provided on the new condition of Westlake Avenue. However, no information has been provided in this description of the construction entrance that will be created at Lakeview Avenue. A 10-year temporary road is a permanent road and should be studied as such. We are effectively taking a 3-way T-bone intersection and turning it into a 4-way intersection. This needs to be studied. 2,
The immediate opposite side of that is shown as a road. But as somebody who's been involved in the construction industry, we all know that is going to be a parking lot for construction trucks spewing diesel fumes. Immediate opposite from that is the Methodist Church, which is a school and which was also hosting our town's kindergarten, first and second grade camp, who will be breathing in that fumes. This needs to be considered, and I know is probably not considered in the FEIS because it is not a permanent structure, it's a temporary use. We need to be thinking about that. Finally, I'd like to point out that Lakeview Avenue is a very busy road. It was laid out, as best I can tell, in the 1710s as a horse road. It is now hosting a major element of this town's road system. It is not designed for this. We saw during the Pepsi period lots of construction vehicles, semi-trucks driving down that road. My children have to cross that road every day. We only have a sidewalk on one side to get on the bus. It is not safe. And the reason for this is the same entity that is causing this problem, DEP. We've closed the dam. Totally understood for security reasons. However, DEP needs to remember, they have a private road to this site over that dam. If they're trusting people to enter the dam, to enter the construction site with all of this stuff, they need to also trust those people to cross the dam, which has permanently positioned police officers on either side to let people on. Very, very few things face Westlake Avenue through there, and DEP should be considering this at a mitigation for our town, to not send things down Columbus Avenue, to not send things down Lakeview. They have a privilege that few others have, a private road into their construction site. They should use it.
Thank you. Okay, we are at our up number 8, correct me if I'm wrong. Number 8. Oh, excuse me, thank goodness I have people here. Number 9.
Good evening, Greg Saraceno, 51 Westlake Drive.
Folks, one second. Folks, I'm going to ask people to just give this man his due time.
Appreciate that. I noticed here up on the screen and also on this paper that this whole project is a result of a consent decree. That's a settlement in a legal case.
And I'm sorry, can you just do me a favor? Can you grab that mic so people
I'll
can
get
hear?
closer.
Thank you.
It's a consent decree, which my understanding is a settlement in a federal legal case where there was a dispute. I think I need a little more information as to what that dispute was about and why, the settlement of this dispute is now this enormous site plan. And I don't recall being consulted when there was a settlement. The next thing is, I live up in the community, top of Westlake Drive, near Lorenz and John Street, and Westlake Drive, as it ports out to Columbus Avenue, is a major conduit, not just for several of us that work in that direction, but also for emergency vehicles. So my concern is whether or not that will be closed for a certain time.
So, okay, so let me get the question back to you on that particular topic. You live where that road is going to be moved. You live back there somewhere. Right?
Correct.
So your question is, what is the impact to that road? How do you get out of your neighborhood? How do you get out to Columbus Avenue, wherever you're going to go?
Yeah, not just me, but also emergency vehicles and...
Yeah, obviously everybody.
Yeah.
So we're going to have that question and I'm sorry, there was one more question we asked before that.
The consent decree. I'm just curious as to what that settlement was, what that dispute was that resulted in this whole
Okay.
project.
So we have 2 questions before us about the consent decree and access in and out of Westlake Drive.
So Westlake Drive, existing Westlake Drive will be moved to the north. While we build the Westlake Drive to the north, the existing road will remain open. When we open the road to the north, the existing one on the south will get closed.
So there will never be a time that, I'm asking this as a statement, there's never going to be a time when that neighborhood will be blocked from going there and they're forced to go the other way around up Stevens and all that.
That's our intent, right?
So that comment, those kind of comments are good because those are kind of comments that we do eventually when we get to that point, put that into the resolution, that making sure that that road is always open, whether it's there or shifted to the left or to the right, it's always to be open to you. You're not going up past the town hall, going up Stevens Avenue and all of that. So, and second question was regarding the...
Just to
Yep.
add to that, just to clarify, that is true. We're not, we have in the contract that we're not closing existing until we open the relocated. There may be occasions if we're bringing in a big delivery where you might have a flagman stop traffic temporarily, but outside of that, it's not going to happen.
And that won't be something that we put into our resolution when if we
Yeah.
do get to that point.
Yep. That's our intention. That's
So-
how we designed the project.
Yep.
And that's why we put that road in the front end of the project, to make sure that the traffic remains, moving while we build our project.
Okay, so that's question number one.
Right. On the consent decree, I did cover it. I don't know that I got deep enough into it. The judgment is related to the Hillview Reservoir and our need to cover that reservoir. So in order to cover that reservoir, the second tunnel is a predecessor so that the water can, the engineering work, so that the water can move while we take half of that reservoir offline in order to build the cover.
Who is making you put the cover there?
EPA and Department of Justice.
And
It's to comply with water quality regulations.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a future project after this and the Hillview projects get completed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And folks, like that was a good question about his neighbor in the back, because I would not necessarily think about that because I don't live back there, so, and we're getting a little feedback, but it seems to go away, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay. Thank you. Number 10. Thank you.
Hello, board. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My name's Eddie. I live in Highclere Lane. Thank you for doing everything. You guys are doing a great job. I will say number 5 and 8, you knocked it out of the park. I just found out about this last week, so I think that's a little crazy considering how much time and effort has gone into this. Besides that, my question is a little bit of a low ball. The parking lot with 30 lots.
Yeah.
Is there any chance we could have porous concrete put in instead of regular asphalt?
And
That's my one question.
And I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Can you explain why that's beneficial?
Just maintenance-wise, it's much better. There's no potholes possibly at all for the next 50 years if you put that in. There's a lot of benefits. It is usually 50% higher in cost, but if you're going to do it right, right?
Would you say, it's a leading question, would you say from water flooding mitigations, is that helpful?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have that in Armonk too, so, in near Beehive, the restaurant. I don't know if you guys are
Okay.
familiar with it, but.
Okay, we're not going to...
Yeah, I know.
We're not
No
going to
answers
question
right
tonight,
now.
but I'm going to ask the applicant to sharpen the pencils and write that down and provide some insight into that.
And I also just wanted to mention, you're going to bring the school over to maybe do some classes for blasting work. That's amazing. I love that. You're going to do a lot of ecological work as well. I was wondering if you could have the school involved with that as well.
Okay.
For planting. I saw you had like 3 different slides for that. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Number 11 is coming up.
Good evening.
Thank you for
Kevin
coming up.
McLean, West High Street, by Mr. Saraceno.
I'm sorry, one more time, your name?
Kevin McLean.
Kevin McLean.
A couple of things I think were glossed over on the EIS, and that had to do with noise. Well, we're going to blast a little, but we're really good at it, so we're going to manage it well. My questions are around when the noise gets too loud, at what point are we able to raise our hands and say, this is really becoming invasive and causing big problems, right? Another one was hours of operations. I think they said, we're going to be working 7 to 3:30. But in the EIS that's online, there are at least 2 shifts per day listed, 7 to 3:30 and 3:30 to 11 p.m. So is that second shift going to be affecting contract number 1 up here? So those were glossed over. 2 questions I have about the dirt. I think the tunnel's starting at Eastview. The question about the removal of that dirt, the debris that comes out of there, does that all go back to Eastview and get then trucked out or does that somehow end up here causing dust? And
I know the answer to that question because we've talked about that already. Yes, it's being trucked out
From Eastview.
from Eastview.
okay, all the way to Eastview, good. And then my last question is the shaft. The shaft is going to be built, it sounds like it's in front of the electrical building that's going up. My question is, how does the water get from the upper effluent chamber to that shaft? Is there a shaft already, or does something else need to be drilled to that UEC?
Okay, so that question I can't answer, but I can ask the applicant to address that question.
All right, I think that was it.
And thank you. Yeah, about the shaft, yeah.
Okay, so one of the future contracts, we're going to be modifying the UEC, the upper effluent chamber. That's where traditionally water from the Kensico Reservoir came into the Catskill Reservoir. So that's a historic structure, which has pluses and minuses. We don't really want to work on the substructure there. So what we're doing is we're constructing a new short tunnel near the surface from that existing facility, and we're going to bring it into the new structure, the screen chamber. And so we make the connection from UEC, that the reservoir through this new short tunnel, and then into the new screen chamber, and that's where it gets connected up with what we call the downtake shaft, which is the water going down into the tunnel and over to Eastview.
Okay. Does that address your...
I would add, when does that start? When that work on the UEC in that tunnel? And how deep is it going to be?
So just remember, just come to us.
Oh, yes, sorry. I was looking at the pictures.
No, I got you.
The question is, when does that start, that
Yep.
process? And will that tunnel be as deep as 300 or 400 feet, or is that more close to the surface that is going to be louder, even louder, right?
Okay, thank you. And you can hang out here if you want to hear his response, right?
Sure. I'm going to rudely turn around so I can talk to that. Okay, so what we're talking about, the upper effluent chamber, that's actually in our third set of contracts, Ken's East 3. So we're still in design on that contract, and we're looking to start that one in the next couple years. I think that work is early on in that contract, but with any of our work, to answer the other part of it, it's not hundreds of feet down. I don't have the exact depth. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's fairly close to the surface, fairly close to the reservoir elevation. Just with any of our work, we will have noise monitoring. We do have noise limits on any of that type of work that we insert into our contracts, and that we seek to comply with the town code. So we will be monitoring that very closely. And with blasting, we do what's called test shots. So those are the first sets of blasting that we'll do, and that's just to make sure that we have everything correct. That everything's been appropriately drilled, and we're looking at, among other things, the amount of noise that we're getting from that when the blast occurred, and then we adjust our practices accordingly.
Right. Thank you. Okay, folks. I think we went through all the folks who were commenting, and again, I stated in the outset. Oh, I'm having a bad night, guys. I'm sorry.
You're up to 12, you've got 14 signed up.
Thank you very much. Number 12. I'm so engrossed by it, and of course, Stephen. My apologies.
That's quite all right, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Cabby, Conservation Advisory Council Chair in the town of Mount Pleasant. Our view on this application is very narrow. Our review is really limited to environmental issues. I can hear from the audience that there's a great amount of other issues with regard to the logistics and the construction. Those are certainly reasonable. So I just want to say that our specific focus is only on environmental impacts. And I would like to say that we've been in discussion with the DEP on this application and the environmental impacts and the habitat and all these other consequences and reviews that have been part of the process. And we had a more recent discussion with DEP and sent some written comments, got a response earlier today on a number of our specific questions. I just want to say also that the DEP has been a good partner in managing and stewarding their property, their large amount of property that provides habitat value and environmental services to the town and to the planet in general, and more particularly providing clean water, which is obviously a very important environmental service for all of us. And this is part of the process that is required in order to maintain and provide clean water for our town, for New York City, for, as I say, what, about half of the population of our state. So, and there are impacts, there's no question about it, and the loss of trees is an unfortunate one, and we've talked about it. It's a multi-year project that's going to have a very large impact on the area of concentration of the sites that we've reviewed. But ultimately, there's a good replanting plan. I did have some other follow-up questions from the response that we got today. In particular, there's a fence that goes around the site, and we had asked that that a gap be provided for transit for small mammals and reptiles, which may answer some of the questions that some of the people raised with regard to the transit of animals coming on and off the site. And from what I understand, and this is a question I'd like to have further answered, the fence is going to require a cement barrier underneath, which I got a response, but I didn't really get an answer, as the saying goes. So I'm not clear whether that gap is not possible, and that's what the answer was, because that's cement. And if in fact it's a cement portion underneath the fence, then there may be other methods for infrastructure to create pathways. It's not impossibility to create pathways through fenced areas. And this is important because this is a water area, and that's animals are always transiting, reptiles, small mammals, all fowl, birds, all these animals are transiting from water areas to land areas. So we'd like to have more clarity on that, because I think that there's probably an answer to provide this transit. The other, with regard to, we asked specifically about the long-term maintenance of the invasives that are being controlled. From what I gather tonight, this is just going to be an ongoing maintenance, but the answer wasn't really as specific as we normally see in an application, where the planning board will direct an applicant to provide a 3 or 5 or longer term maintenance plan to make sure that whatever invasives are removed and whatever new plantings are put in, that they're guaranteed over a certain period of time to be maintained, and it's stated in the resolution, so that we know that until they're well established, that this maintenance will continue. I gather from the presentation tonight that this maintenance will be ongoing, but that's a less specific term than a scheduled understanding of how long this will go on. But I also want to say that I have a lot of faith in the DEP. Now, this audience is relatively new to this process, and it's clear that the idea that this seems to be sprung on them is unfortunate, because the process has been going on for quite some time, and unfortunately that's the nature of the planning process. If you don't read the agenda every month or twice a month, you really wouldn't know that these things are happening. That's the purpose of a public hearing. Now we're here and we can talk about it and the public can respond. Just a little commercial on behalf of the planning board and the planning process. But specifically, we would like to see something with regard to the maintenance plan. On the elements of the replanting, I saw from the site plan at the end of the project a meadow mix that looked like it's spotted areas of meadow mix, and I'm just curious if that's finite, or final I should say, or if it's possible that we might consider a more vast amount of meadow mix, or if there's a maintenance issue with regard to that, because in order to get a threshold of habitat value, it would be nice to have a more expansive amount of meadow mix rather than these what seem to be small little patches of it. So that's another thing that I'd like to have clarified. One second. And I'd also just like to say that unfortunately, there is tree clearing. There's tree clearing in just about every development that goes on within this town. There's Legions of Christ property has a tree clearing of a very substantial amount. This is not a small amount of tree clearing, but relative to some of the other tree clearing that we see in other subdivisions, it's not inconsistent. So this is the nature of development and growth. But here we have tree clearing that's not for a subdivision, but for the public benefit. And that really needs to be considered in the context of what we're doing. And an outcome that ultimately we hope what we're going to see is replanting and invasive management, which really will have a positive effect. Now, that's not going to be until 2031, so we all need to be part of this review process as we go through the multiple phases, and this is just phase one of three phases. So we'll all be back here again in 3 or 5 years, or next month.
They're all here live, right?
In any case, and that's so I've outlined the specific questions we have, and we'll be continuing to discuss with DEP. But again, I just want to be clear that I have we have a very narrow scope, the Conservation Advisory Council, on behalf of the town of Mount Pleasant as part of municipal government, and that is to look at environmental consequences and impacts and where there's mitigation. And we feel that DEP is moving in the right direction, and I think that with in partnership that we'll wind up with a result that will provide some habitat value and environmental services at the end of this project. But in the course of doing it, we really do want to keep an eye on how things develop.
Thank you. And thank you, Steve. And a little plug for the CAC as well, Steve. The CAC does a tremendous amount of work for this town, and we rely on him for all this environmental comment. So thank you for that. So I'm going to do this right. Number 13. Number 13. Just grab that mic and state your name and all that for the record.
Hi, Laura Senti, 337 Columbus Avenue. Just to follow up on what Mr. Cabey said, there has been a lot of tree removal. I hope that as many trees are removed, that they will be replaced eventually at the end of the project, and I hope that we can see that that's done. And the other concern is that we're here at this public hearing, yet the trees are already being removed. So that's just, I understand the process has been going on for a while, but it seems that we should have had the public hearing before the tree removal started.
Yeah, let me just address that really quick. In town, in Mount Pleasant, there's not a mechanism for anybody to cut down trees or not cut down trees, which is an interesting conversation, which I'm not going to get into. I have thoughts where it could be beneficial to have that conversation, but if you chose to cut down a tree today, you could.
But we have a tree ordinance.
Pleasantville does.
No,
Yeah, we have tree-
we have a tree ordinance.
Yeah, the trees that were removed were done pursuant to a permit, and it was done, as you heard earlier, to address the window of the wildlife concerns, that Indiana bat issue. So the
Okay.
building department reviewed that, there's a mitigation plan and so forth, so it was done pursuant to a permit. But
Okay.
you're right, it was done prior to this public hearing.
Right, okay. Questions on Westlake Drive, where it's the new Westlake Drive. Is there going to be a left-hand turn allowed out of that Westlake Drive?
So onto Columbus?
Onto Columbus.
Onto
And
Columbus.
is there going to be a traffic light?
Okay, so the question, let me get that question correctly. So is there going to be a left-hand turn allowed from Westlake Drive onto Columbus, and is there going to be a traffic light?
Yeah, because there's a very bad line of sight when you go to make a left-hand turn.
So I think
at
that
that area.
I think that question we can address quickly tonight. We can get that one out of the ballpark.
Okay.
Can we, you have another question, I'm sorry.
I have some other questions.
Okay.
With this project, is there going to be any increase of hazardous chemicals with this process? And if there is, what plans are in place for emergency evacuation. You have the school, the high school, you have the Kensico School, you have the Methodist Church, you have the daycare centers around here as well. I know periodically there has been drills done, but it has never involved, as far as I'm aware, the schools evacuating on a test basis or the neighbors being notified. And, you know, where are they evacuating? Are they evacuating north? Are they evacuating south? So I think something needs to be done. You know, God forbid there's an emergency there, that we have something in place and that there has been a test run of it, especially with the schools and the children.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just remember the two questions I think we may be able to address tonight. One question is Columbus Avenue and Westlake Drive and the intersection. And second question that you had was, and I'm paraphrasing back to you to make sure I understand the question, is are there chemicals on the site that we need to plan evacuation measures for? Correct.
Well, I mean, there's always been chlorine. Is that going to, the amount of chlorine, is that
Nope.
going to increase?
No, that's a thought.
And that means that it's also being brought in, it's increasing over the
Yep.
town roads, so.
No good,
those are the
no
questions.
good questions. So I do think those questions can be addressed tonight, because I think the applicant should be able to answer those quickly, and we'll see what he says. Thank you.
So for the question about the relocated Westlake Drive and Columbus Avenue making a turn there, so as part of the EIS process, we performed traffic analysis. We took traffic counts and we modeled the proposed action. So what the conditions will be like after we're done with all of this work. And we did not see any change in the traffic patterns. So we've proposed that intersection mimic the current intersection of Westlake Drive and Columbus. So it does not have a traffic signal, so it would be just limited to a stop sign.
So the specific question was, can you make a left-hand turn onto Westlake Drive?
You can make a left-hand turn onto Westlake.
But there's not going to be
yes.
traffic light.
Correct.
That's the proposal.
Left-hand turn onto Columbus Avenue from Westlake.
From, yes,
Yes.
correct.
Yep. Okay. Okay, we can get into that conversation. Okay, and the second question.
Okay. Take down the whole thing? Sure. So on the chemicals, we add chlorine at the facility. We've done that for a long time. We had at Shaft 18, we have a facility. We have a very robust RMP program, risk management program, where we have staff dedicated to that action. And we've gone through what's called a PHA, process hazard analysis, as part of this design. The facilities are altered, so we now have another tunnel. We have to be able to add chlorine into it, and it's a little bit further on the other side of the campus. So there's some modifications to piping associated with that, but there's no net increase in chemical use, or there's no change to the global risk of that chemical. It's the same volume of water we're moving. We may move it from point B versus point A that we're moving it today, but the program is going to still remain there. The safety precautions, the coordination with the town and the local emergency response agencies that our treatment operations group does are robust and frequent. So we take that very seriously at the agency.
Okay. Okay, and we
Hope
can
that
get into that
answers it.
conversation. There's a couple of questions there, but we'll get into that in a subsequent. I have a couple thoughts on that too. So, but we'll hold off on that for a little bit. Okay, thank you. So we are up to number 14.
My name is Dennis Spinelli, and I live at Columbus Avenue right here. And I happen to work for Stutz Bus Company, so what they said about the traffic not changing, you're going to create a tremendous problem for the people going to the school in the morning. The traffic backs up almost down to Westlake Drive now, and you're not going to have a traffic light there to help people out. You have the crossing guard there. who tries to do her best, and if you ever watch her running in between the cars, you wouldn't want to be near her. That's a problem. And again, the sight distance is not good. The other thing is, there's a concrete building back on the end of Westlake Drive, and I'm guessing that's where the road is going to come up along. How are you going to handle that hill? Are they going to cut it down and make giant walls on either side? And they're putting a road there that's going to be an incline two ways, where the road you have now is almost flat. What's going to happen in the wintertime when those kids come out of school all juiced up because the day is over and they're going back towards Westlake Drive, and it's going to be icy or snowy right into the reservoir? There's nothing there to stop them. I'd really like to see a traffic light there. And then you're talking about changing the traffic pattern at Lakeview. So there's a tremendous problem. When I come out of there with a bus in the afternoon, I pull out of the high school and I have to stop and wait for traffic all the way down. In the morning, I'm an earlier bus, but at certain times of the year, it even affects me going into the school at 6:45 or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
All right? There's got to be a light put there.
So, yeah, and that's actually a good, interesting thought. So there's a light at Lakeview in Columbus today, and then the suggestion that you have is a light at the new Westlake Drive. And
working in conjunction.
Working in conjunction. Okay. Okay.
And I also think, I'm thinking back how the DEP or the water people have done things to us over the years. They put the fence around the reservoir overnight, which they weren't supposed to do, and there was a big to-do over that, and half that fence had to come down.
Right.
Those people, the cops pull out of there, the trucks are pulling out of there, but yet we have to be displaced. They're still going to use the same road. Why aren't they using the other road?
Right.
And there are a lot of tractor trailers that go in there normally, never mind the construction.
Right.
And the other gentleman about using the top of the dam, make them do it.
Right.
All right? They closed it off. They caused all these problems after, let's see, it was 9/11, I guess, when they had the problem over there, which was 2001. They just opened up the light at the end of Nanahagan 20 years later.
Yep.
And we had meetings 3 or 4 years after that where they were already sidestepped. Well, you guys had these problems, and now we had to change the traffic pattern a little bit, and everything stopped.
Right.
Yeah. What else have they done around here? You gotta go across. It doesn't affect you guys, but they redid the entrance to the Virginia Road going across the Parkway. They had an opportunity to put a right-hand turn lane there. When they did it, didn't do it.
Okay.
It's stuff like this. Their planning is not right.
Yep.
Cars should be going across the top of that dam. Trucks, something like that, yes. But cars wouldn't affect anything. And that would eliminate a lot of these problems.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. And thank you. And first I want to thank the public for coming out tonight. And I want to emphasize that. We're in a process, and we are here because we want to hear from you folks tonight, which is what we're doing tonight. Your questions were detailed. They're going to be addressed at the next public hearing. We'll get into that conversation in a second. But recognize that everything that we do here, we're members of the public as well. And we're also residents of the town of Mount Pleasant. So we live in the town that everybody else lives in. So thank you for coming out, and we're going to try to get some of these questions or all these questions addressed. I want to make sure that we get information into the library for our people who are not able to log onto things digitally. That's a thing that I've always been pushing over some of these big applications. So that's something we need to make sure we get done. And then we need to get into the conversation about when we're going to schedule the next public hearing. Because I think that conversation we need to kind of detail tonight about when we would be prepared to have that conversation. How much time do you need to kind of address these questions and bring things together?
I'll just say, as we said when we were presenting earlier, we have this first contract, which is time critical. It's site preparation work. the road, the electrical building, and the preparation for the larger contracts, which have brought a lot of questions tonight, and we have more public engagement for those. So it's imperative that we move this first contract along. We have a contractor ready to work, as we've mentioned last meeting. We will do our best to be ready your next meeting to come back with answers. I want to put that on the folks that are answering those questions and preparing the response to comments. Can we do that, Kevin? Come back the next meeting, or should?
Next meeting is April 4th.
Okay.
Thursday, April 4th.
April 4th?
And how's your calendar for April 4th?
It's a couple weeks out. Yeah. We'll be here April 4th.
Well, hold on.
So just, we would need it ahead of time so we could get it, we could review
Sure.
it, send out to the public to review as well. So we need it ahead of that time.
What date would you need that, Pat?
Well, that's a Thursday's the meeting, Monday?
Monday.
Of the same week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I think we can meet that. I mean, it is that important to us to move this first contract along. And, as we said, this contract has the narrower issues of the overall program.
Okay.
The tunnel, et cetera.
So we're going to shoot for April
4th, yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. We'll get to you. Okay. So we're going to shoot for April 4th, right? So we're going to have that conversation with how we're going to notify people and get out to that. But April 4th is the deadline. So, okay.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you very much. Okay. Okay, I see someone jumping, which I'm going to ask you, I don't typically do this, but come on up to the mic and just state your name and all that for the record.
My name is Frank, and I live on 171 Columbus Avenue. To shoot first contract should not continue until all the questions are answered. The traffic, the dam closing, Columbus Avenue, the traffic gets backed up from the village.
Yep.
If you go down the village in the morning, that traffic's backed up. All the dams should be open so the traffic can go over before that contract continues, that first contract. All the answers should be, all the questions should be answered.
Right, which is what we're trying to do.
Okay. So that should be stopped. The first contract should be stopped until all the questions are answered.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
You need a motion?
Yeah. Okay. So one quick thing though, before we get into that. So I'm going to ask folks, this is an important application, and I'm well aware of that. So a couple things. That sign in front of the location, the date's going to need to change with that for the next public hearing. So we need to make sure we get that done, which, Carolyn, I think that should be something we should be able to do, right?
Yes, I'll talk to the applicant about it.
Yep, okay. So we'll need to do that. Then I think we need to make sure that we get the word out to the public. I think we can do that through the email mechanism we have in town.
People have to sign up to be notified when the agenda's hit, and we can have Amanda post the blast on the website.
So if you can reach out to Carolyn, there's an email blast that goes out for the town for all the agendas. Get your name on that agenda list. And I'm also going to ask folks there's other ways to communicate to each other, is make sure that you talk to each other. If you find out the meeting is definitely April 4th, tell people, get word out. Again, I'm a member of the public. We're all members of the public. Hearing this dialogue from you is good because there's questions I did not think of that were very salient questions to the application. So we're going to go through that process together, all of us moving forward, and we'll end up somewhere at some point. So with that being said, we need to take a motion to extend the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to extend the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to extend the public hearing.
We have a motion from JD.
Second.
Second from Eileen. Walter? Jane? Eileen?
Aye.
JD?
Aye.
And an aye from me. And that's it, folks. Thank you for coming out tonight.
You're